one. Yeah.
Squeak, squeak. We are live.
Live from the Plutopia News Network. This is the Plutopia Happy Hour, and it's also going to be the Weird Hour, I believe. Our guest, Howie Richey. And, of course, I'm Scoop Sweeney, and over there in South Austin is our designated driver and weird guy, John Lemkowski.
Or the driven designator.
Drive on.
Well, I am very happy that Howie Richey is joining us tonight, and I can't imagine why we haven't done this before now. Howie has written the Encyclopedia of Austin Party Weird Festivals and Fringe Gatherings of Austin. And, you know, if we start talking about all the great parties we know about that have happened here in Austin, it's going to be a long conversation, and we might still be sitting here a week from now. But we'll try to cram as much as we can into our hour. So, Howie, what possessed you to decide to write a book about all of these weird parties? It looks like it was hard work.
Well, it was a joy, but I've been wanting to write a book for quite a while, and I just thought, well, as you probably know, I am an Austin tour guide for many years, and I thought, well, someone said, well, just write about your tours, and I thought, well, there's already a lot of books about touring Austin, about Austin history, and about sights to see and places to go, and I didn't feel like it would be just a drop in a big bucket. And I wanted something nobody has done before. So looked around and thought, how about celebrations in Austin? How about Austinites expressing themselves through gatherings and revelries that we've been doing all these years? That might make an interesting book. So I just started, and there it is.
And you make the really good point that Austin has always been a kind of a party town, right?
One of the best, one of the things I'm most gratified about writing the book was I got Margaret Moses to write the introduction, and she, I didn't tell her what to put in there. I mean, I didn't ask. I just said, "Would you please write a little piece?" And she and I both realized that the very night that Austin was dedicated was a party, back in 1839, and yeah, we've been partying ever since. I mean, this has always been a party place.
Yeah, I think she actually went to a few parties. She was my editor at the Austin Chronicle.
Excellent.
So we got to be friends back then.
Yeah.
So you've got some kind of early stuff in here, all the way back to Elizabeth Ney.
Yes.
And she was a party animal, as I understand.
Right. Yeah. Typical German. She worked extremely hard, but then she turned around and partied just as hard. Famous for getting in her buggy and driving fast through the streets of Austin. Again, typical artist as well, dressing strangely and not paying any attention to convention, and so she was kind of the talk of the town. And she had people over to her little place up there in Hyde Park, halfway a temple and halfway castle. Looks pretty German, kind of Greek at the same time. So she had people over a lot and drinking wine and making music. So yeah, she was one of the early ones.
How about Bill Porter, also known as O. Henry?
Yeah.
What did he do? Did he have some parties too?
Well, he was definitely a man about town. Came to Texas from, I believe, North Carolina. His doctor said, go west to try to clear out I don't know if it was TB or some other ailment. Drier air would do you good. So he came out here, and he was a cowboy in South Texas for a while. Carried a dictionary in his saddlebag, which is kind of unusual for our idea of a cowboy. he got to Austin and just started started in on the social life here, frequenting several of the drinking establishments, singing at least a couple choirs, church choir and quartets, and serenading the ladies from balconies, things like that. And in fact, he met a young woman, Athol, and married her. And yeah, he was quite the man about town.
And did he spend the rest of his life in Austin once he got here?
No, the rather sordid tale is that he was trying to make it. He was like me, a state employee, worked for the land office, was a draftsman, was famous for, was noted for not only coming up with good plats, but with decorating the margins with little cartoons and things. He started a newspaper, a satirical, I guess it was a 4-sheet newspaper called the Rolling Stone. In those during that time, sold for 5 cents or something, and later went to work for. He also had in the Rolling Stone were also some of his illustrations. He worked for one of the banks downtown, and not sure what happened, but the manager realized that his the money in his till was not quite adding up. So they hauled him up for embezzlement, and instead of finding it right away, he left town. He skipped town, left his wife and his infant daughter, and just left. And that, the optics of that aren't good at all. And he was away for a while, but then Athol was on her deathbed, so he came back and saw her off and faced the music, and was sent away to a prison he was convicted of embezzlement and sent away to a prison in Ohio. And unfortunately, he never came back to Austin. Started writing under the pen name O. Henry later, mainly because he didn't want people to know about his evil past. So he just didn't reveal his true identity. And it was living in New York that he came up with all his short stories and all the characters that he met in that big city. And that was O. Henry.
Wow, what a man!
Yep.
So I kind of want to skip forward here to one of the first big event festivals thing that I knew about in Austin when I first started coming here, really when I was a kid. It was Aquafest.
Yeah.
And you've got a bit about Aquafest in your book. Tell us about Aquafest.
It started off as a Chamber of Commerce promotional thing. Because typically, the summer, hot in Austin, of course, pardon me, and what they do when there weren't that many travelers coming, that many visitors, and they looked around and they said, well, we got these great lakes, and we got coolness from the water. Let's celebrate what we have, which was the Colorado River and Martin Springs and all the other water features from the hill country, and started doing river parades and having music and carnival rides and parades, land parades as well. An aqua queen, the crowning of the pageant of the leader and everything, and it just grew over the years, and sure enough, it became successful for a long time. I think 15, maybe 20 years, and it was one of the early, I guess you'd call it, the big, large gatherings in Austin for music and fun. They would have different nights. So there'd be a country western night, and they'd do country music. There was the various Texas ethnicities, like Polish night or a Czech night, and German night, Chicano night, and yeah, it was quite a thing, and it kept growing. And sure enough, yes, that is my actual personal collection of the little skipper pins that you bought ahead of the event that would get you discounts. It was to be sort of like instead of a wristband, you had this little thing you you pinned on your shirts that let you into the venue. And
I'm
usually,
impressed that you held on to those.
yeah. Well, I'm afraid I've held on to way too much stuff. If you were to lift this curtain behind me, you'd find that out. But I'm not going to do that. So let's. But yeah, they're kind of a collector's item and a precious little thing.
I have a vague drunken memory of going to Aquafest in, God, this probably would have been 71, 72, 73. It would have probably been 73 or 74. And I was with my wife. I think we had just got married. And I got called up on stage for some kind of thing that they were doing. And the guy who was the MC was Cactus Pryor's brother. I think his name was Wally Pryor.
Yes. Wally Pryor announced the games at UT at the Memorial Stadium for years and years and years.
Those guys were quite a pair.
Yeah, in fact, I was also honored. I was an RTF student graduate at UT, and through some mutual friends, I got to meet Cactus Pryor, and I was on this radio show one time as the guest, and that was pretty cool.
What were you talking about?
At that time, I was just launching my touring business, or my passion. I was called in those days I was the Texas Back Roads Scholar, and I wanted to just travel around Texas and interview old people and find obscure places to go and strange routes down hidden corners. And I saw myself as just a traveler and a reporter of Texas trivia and the unusual. So we talked about that.
Wow. So Aquafest went on for how many years?
Well, I can't. It's all in the book, and of course, I don't remember the dates. But it ended up just getting a little bit unruly and out of hand, and maybe too big, and it ended up just shutting down. I think it was probably in the probably about 1980, 85, something like that. It finally went the way of the dinosaur.
Wasn't there some controversy about boat races?
There were a lot of things like that just didn't seem to fit the rest of it. There's these so-called they had boat drag races on what was then called Town Lake, and a lot of noise and a lot of crowds, and unfortunately they were holding them east of I-35 in the Mexican American area, the Chicano district, and that was also kind of an insult because all the noise and the crowds and those people weren't benefiting at all from any of it. So there was some political difficulty, and they finally just had to stop doing that. And little by little, the whole thing just went away.
Is it true that some people were using alcohol down there?
I didn't hear that part. I don't know where you got that idea.
I was there.
Yeah, you probably had the usual stuff of underage drinking and things like that. But yeah, that was Aquafest was something else. But it was, it was one part of the long tradition that we've had of welcoming people and celebrating.
It was a festival, really, right? I mean, it was like, who was it that was talking about a definition of a festival being like something that contains a bunch of different parties?
Yes.
A
series of parties over several days.
And that one was certainly like that. I wonder how many people were involved in putting that thing on. It was kind of big. It was like pervasive downtown, right? When it was going on. Mm-hmm. So other than the Chamber of Commerce, I guess there were a lot of other organizations that got involved over the years. And It was it lasted until what, 92 or something?
Oh, is it that late? All right, you're going to make me look into my own book and find out. But when did I write it?
I'm not sure. It might have been 82.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I bet I could look it up.
It was about the time my first child was born, so that would have been early 80s.
Oh, wow. This says Wikipedia shows entries for 1990 to 1998. It says with its
They tried
multiple.
I think they tried to bring it back at some point, but it just didn't have its original oomph.
What it says here is with its multiple stages for entertainment, Aquafest changed from a civic event to a live music event. The organizers began to book bigger and bigger acts, even paying premiums to get popular acts such as Dolly Parton in 1992. This drove ticket prices up and attendance down. By 1993, the festival only drew 44,000 people and as a result lost $722,000. The festival organization exhausted its cash reserves and asked its largest creditor, the city of Austin, for permission to pay off its debt in annual installments. And then apparently it got brought back in like 95 or something like that. And they tried the drag boat races again on Lake Walter E. Long instead of what was then Town Lake, later called Lady Bird Lake. Much to her chagrin, I'm sure. I think she's turning over in her grave. She always told him not to name it Lady Bird Lake.
Definitely don't do that stuff. Yeah, in my book I said it left us in '98, so it had a pretty good run.
Yeah, it's kind of an amazing thing because it started apparently in '62. 62 to 98, that's 36 years. Wow. And it looks like there was something called Aerofest too. Because we had an Air Force base here.
Right. Had something to do with Bergstrom.
Wow. Yeah, I forgot that Bergstrom had been here, but actually when you have an Air Force base, you have Air Force PR people and they stage events and they fly jets over town and that kind of thing. You're back.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
I was getting some audio interference from the next room, from the party next room. Okay.
There's always a party. So the other thing is, or the next thing I wanted to talk about was there one year when I was a student at UT and lived in apartments on like Duval. I wandered over to, we regularly would go over to Eastwoods Park. Went over there one day and found a bunch of loony people. It seems like they had a hot air balloon, among other things. They were having like a big soiree. And they told me that it was Eeyore's birthday party. And, I knew Eeyore. I didn't realize anybody knew when he was born. But that, it turns out, became a pretty major thing. I think this was the third year maybe of Eeyore's birthday party. And after that, it went on and on. So, and I know you've written about it in your book. Eeyore's is still going on, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. But we missed it last 2 years because of COVID.
Yeah. But what has it evolved into now? I mean, back then it was mostly a bunch of college students, like maybe from the English department, and they were at Eastwoods Park doing it, and it wasn't huge, but now it's huge, right?
Yeah, it got so popular that it outgrew Eastwoods Park. And in my experience, somebody said, I was working at UT. It's actually at the ID Center, and one of my buddies said, you ought to go check out Eeyore's. I said, what's that? And they said, just go. And that was the last year it was held at Eastwood because it was just too crowded. But birthday party for a fictitious character, and all kinds of same thing, music. But the main thing was the costumes and the silly games people would play, and all the, as I said, revelry. It's pretty amazing stuff. And then they moved to Pease Park, and they sort of restructured it, but it got bigger, and it got some good sponsors. The University Y was in charge of it for several years, and then it came up with its own foundation, Friends of the Forest, who shepherded it. They're still doing it when they can.
So what was the origin of Eeyore's?
The party itself?
Yeah.
University professor, English professor, had an idea of doing it just with one or two of his classes. said, let's go and have a little celebration. And
Was
the
that
organizer,
Ayers that started it?
yes, that was the name.
Yeah, and he's also the guy who started what's Wyandotte Shakespeare.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
Shakespeare guy.
so he was a party animal, I guess.
And there was another fellow named Lloyd, who Lloyd Birdwell, who was also one of the originators, and he was, I think he would have been, he was probably a student, but he just thought it would be a great idea, a great way to meet girls. So let's have a party.
I have no doubt of that. Well, it was. I mean, it started as just kind of a party in the park, and it's amazing that it's grown to be. It's like a festival now, right?
Assuredly, it's one it's thing it's one of those only in Austin sort of things, and I just love going. I haven't missed it. I didn't miss it, not any time since I guess it was 75 or something when I started going, and I made every one of them.
It's a strange event.
Strange that it's not happening. It's a heartbreaker.
Do you think they'll be able to resume?
Yeah. Once we all get our shots and come out of our hibernation and our caves and our isolation, I think it should come roaring back, because there's a great desire for it, and pent up demand that can only be expressed that way.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that around town already. People are out in droves now, kind of feeling that the pandemic is over. Of course, we don't know for sure that it's over, but it kind of seems like it is at least at a lull. So I have been dominating the discussion here. I think Scoop probably hadn't said as much because he didn't live in Austin back then. But Scoop, what have you got?
What have I got?
What have you got?
I'm just
Other than
listening
Mickey
to
Mouse.
old timer. I'm a carpetbagger here. I just came
Oh.
back to Texas 15 years ago, so but I grew up in Texas, the same one stoplight town as John, and
There were 2 stoplights in that town. You miscounted.
oh well, my math skills were always a little challenged, but yeah, I went to school at North Texas in the late '60s, and if you've ever been to Denton, Texas, Howie, have you ever been to Denton, Texas?
I've been through it. That's the best I can tell you. I think I went to some kind of event at the college, or had something to do with the college, but I knew people from there.
Yeah, well, in the late '60s, it was not a hotbed of entertainment. It's if you wanted to get some sleep, you could probably just go downtown and sleep, because we had to come to Austin if we wanted to have some entertainment, and we did that quite often. So, I learned, how to drive in my sleep from Denton to Austin, and I guess that was sort of pre I-35, or it was the beginnings of I-35, but it was always a challenging drive. But it was well worth it, because you're coming down to places like the Vulcan, the Jade Room, all those fun places. Denton, they had, I think they had a hamburger stand, and that was about it. But what was the weirdest thing? You do your tours. What's the weirdest tour that you've ever done?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. Tours last about 3 hours, which is normal for I think a normal attention span for most travelers, and you have to kind of hit the highlights, and you go to as many places as you can. Um, would talk about all these things. Loved taking them to the original location of South Pop and showing them the murals there and the stage, and in the museum with the posters and the other memorabilia. Cathedral of Junk, when we could get into it, was always a fantastic stop on that tour. Um, and some of the odd houses here and there around, and I'd also drive them past Peace Park. Of course, if Eeyores isn't actually happening, it's hard to visualize this enormous flood of tie-dye people and all the flowers and all the all the love spilling out everywhere. Um, but Cathedral Junk is up there. Is one of maybe the weirdest place as far as an exhibit. Now there's also Costa Neverlandia, where I take people again when I can get a reservation. That I think that's going to win the prize as the weirdest house in Austin, the weirdest residence, and that's created by an artist friend of ours. And he built this. He bought an old house from, it's in South Austin, of course. Bought an old house, an old 1910 house, and over the years just completely restructured it until it's a real fairyland of a dwelling. That's fun to go through there because just everything, every square inch is decorated with something, some kind of a either color scheme or a trinket or just art everywhere, and it's that's pretty cool.
Well, on your tours, have you had tourists that go on your tours that didn't expect it to be as weird as perhaps it was?
I always like getting the wows from the clients, and I got plenty of those. But yeah, the question remains: is Austin really that weird? I mean, doesn't every big city have its eccentrics and its strange corners and all that? And I would just say, well, that may be true, but in other places they may try to cover up those aspects, whereas we bring them to the fore and we celebrate them.
Yeah, there's not too many places like Austin for sure. You have a section on Inner Sanctum Records, and that's sort of near and dear to my heart because I believe I was the first customer of Inner Sanctum Records. Whoa. I was actually there the day that Joe Bryson was talking to Phil Avakian about getting the place, mm-hmm. you know, and they were sort of doing their deal, and Joe took over and was in the same location originally. And then, as you document in your book, he had to move to their final resting place over at what was that called? What is that location called where Les Amis was?
It had a name. Well, it was just.
I think so. It's something like.
Yeah, it had a name. Yeah.
Mockingbird or Bluebird. Anyway, I mean now it's like what, a Starbucks or something like that. But yeah. At the time there was this little restaurant called Les Amis that served, I think, mostly vegetarian food, as I recall. But, you know, we just would hang out there endlessly. And then Inner Sanctum went in next door. So Inner Sanctum picked up a lot of traffic from students and hippies and crazy people, all sorts of people. And I know that Inner Sanctum was attached to a number of great parties.
That's why I wrote about them, because they would have record release parties that you couldn't believe. They'd celebrate a band, coming on and performing, and yeah, they were they were quite famous. And Inner Sanctum too. I mean, how can you beat that? You have both of them within. Not even a nickel's throw of each other, and the Inner Sanctum always had the eccentrics there, and then Joe would put on these cool parties and occupy the parking lot with the band and everything. I must have attended some of those. If I didn't, it was as if I did.
If you don't remember them, you were probably there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was certainly there for a lot of that stuff. And then John Coons and Louis Karp started Waterloo Records. Mm-hmm. At some point. I think the Inner Sanctum still existed when they started that. And that sort of took over as sort of like the major record store in Austin. But I don't think it was ever quite as weird as Inner Sanctum was.
No, but they did.
In your sense of weird.
They did carry on the tradition of live music in the store. In fact, they I mean, to their credit, they've done it every week for gosh forever. And the other cool thing is you could try it before you buy it. They'd let you go into a booth and listen to an album and see if you wanted to purchase it that time.
Yeah, and you could buy used records there. I think Joe was maybe one of the first to start selling used records, and they got some heat from the record companies about that. But um, I don't know exactly to what extent the record companies contested that, but I think it was finally the final decision was that if somebody's bought a record, they can sell it. They can
Yeah.
sell it used.
Hmm. Got used everything else. Why not used records?
So let's see what's next on our list. There were so many things I had marked in here that I wanted to talk about. One was Spamarama.
Oh yes. Uh, I think I did attend it exactly once when in its original incarnation, and it was at Auditorium Shores, and it sounds horrible, but they had spam cocktails and spam Jello and any way you can imagine of preparing spam. They shot it out of cannons, I think. It's it's uh, it's just it's just out there, and uh, they had a spam cookbook, of course, that went with it that had a lot of information about how it got started and everything. And of course, anything in Austin is going to have lots of music, lots of local bands and all that. And so that went away for a while, but then they've revived that, and it's been, I guess, 3 or 4 years now. They've been doing it annually down at the Moon Tower Saloon on South First, way south
Oh,
of Austin. So it's come back, and it's still again a good time.
I think the Moon Tower is actually on Manchac Road,
Okay,
right?
Manchac. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's better.
I didn't realize they were doing that there.
It's
When was the last? When was the last Spamarama?
well, it wasn't last summer, but it could have been the summer before.
So they're still doing it. So maybe we should talk about Halloween because there's a lot of stuff going on in this town on Halloween.
And again, it may be true in a lot of cities, but I don't know. Ours is it's crazy. It's like so they block off 6th Street, so there's no vehicles to have to contend with, uh, and I mean thousands of people come down, and you can be in the parade or you can watch the parade. You can alternate between it. The idea was to sort of a crowd control measure to keep everybody moving in a circle, so that it didn't bunch up and get dangerous. And they actually kind of had policemen doing that, trying to keep it relatively orderly. Okay, and all your superheroes were there. Every costume you can imagine, like I guess like Carnival in Rio, people are spending months ahead of time coming up with these elaborate costumes that you only see at Halloween.
Oh yeah, the best we ever saw was a guy who was dressed as a giant penis. I've never seen anything like that
Yeah,
before or since.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
was there one year when this was the year before they started putting up like barricades and doing more traffic control on 6th Street. And I had my daughter with me, who was really, just a little girl at the time. And we wandered into that and we almost got separated. I was having trouble hanging on to her. The crowd was completely packed together. It was incredibly dense. And Jim Franklin doing his kind of crowbar thing was kind of up on, I think it was the Ritz
yeah.
that, he was up there doing, I can't remember exactly what he was doing. But it was in a way, it was ecstatic, the energy of the crowd. And in another way, it was a little bit frightening because you felt that you could be like crushed under the weight of the thing. Was that the Pumpkin Stomp or was that a later thing?
That would have been, well, I don't know which year you went, but that happened about, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and that's in the book as well. And it did correspond with his time at the Ritz, and I think he may have done it at 1 or 2 other venues, but yeah, that was wild. And yeah, see, the thing about Halloween, if you manage to make it to around midnight, that's when it got just so crowded that you really had to keep your feet moving, because you would have
Yeah.
been kind of crushed by the crowd. I don't know if anyone has ever actually injured that way, but it's a better idea to skedaddle before it gets quite packed.
And of course, it's not as much like that now because there's police and crowd
Yeah,
control.
yeah. I don't know. We could spend all our time together thinking, well, it's just not what it used to be.
Well, nothing's ever what it used to be, I
Just like nostalgia is not what it used to be.
guess.
And at the time I wrote the book, I didn't think I was just trying to just get some things down for posterity, and it's been kind of heartbreaking to notice that a lot of the events I've written about have indeed gone away, and we're just tired of hearing the newcomers get tossed in, and, oh, you should have been here in the '80s, you should have been here in the '70s, you missed it.
Well,
Well,
but it
there's
is kind of true that the vibe of Austin has, I guess, changed, or maybe the vibe of Austin that we knew has been kind of buried or sidelined by new kinds of energy coming into town. And we've lost something, we've gained something, obviously. And while Austin is a great city, especially culturally, um, there are some parts of Austin that have sadly disappeared.
mm-hmm.
You can think back to, gosh, one of the earliest examples of something that just kind of went away was the Soap Creek Saloon.
Yes.
And, the Majeskis sold it off to, I can't remember the name of the guy. I actually knew that guy. So I should remember his name, but I don't. But a guy bought it and moved it downtown and did pretty well with it for a while. And then finally that went away. But the original Soap Creek Saloon was, at the time, that was like way out in the country. It's kind of the middle of Westlake now, but you had to like drive down a dirt road. I'm sure you went there many times.
Rutted Road.
Yeah.
And again, the best depository for all this stuff is still it's now the Austin Popular Culture Center. And doggone it, they moved into Threadgills, and then Threadgills left, so they had to move again. But they're looking to for a new site, and it would be great if they could have a permanent exhibit somewhere, a real museum where people can walk through and experience Austin in the '70s, punk rock in the '80s, just all the different eras, and have the music and have the clothing and all of it that come. Each of those decades has had something to offer. And
They've got a slider here on their website. This is pretty great. Oh my gosh. I wonder what that is.
yeah, I mean, what a great synthesis of the artists and the musicians and the climate and the just the whole vibe of Austin. I mean, I think we're pretty lucky to be here.
We're lucky to have survived.
Yeah.
So South Pop has no physical location right now?
That is correct.
Well, that's kind of sad. They were down at what, Planet K? Or
The South Lamar location was right behind Planet K, and
yeah.
they had a stage. They had music there. They had there was always every time there was an opening for an exhibit, they had music, beer and dancing and all of it. And when the show closed, they had beer and dancing and music and all of it.
I wonder if there's just not, like, maybe the the people who care about this are disappearing.
Leah is the executive director, and she's been able to put together some kind of collaboration with some, I don't know, either Austin Museum or art galleries or something. We're going to see more from them once they kind of regroup with no fixed abode, as it turns out. But that it is, the collection is still very much a treasure trove.
Oh, we'd love to have them join us here.
Yes,
we could have a nice conversation.
If I could suggest to the show, get Leah and try to get Jim Franklin and Sam Yates and
oh yeah,
Annie Garrett. The artists would make a fantastic show to talk about how they did all those posters and all the creativity that went into them.
Yeah, I loved the collection of the comics art, the poster art by old friend, my late friend Bill Narum. Immediately made me go down there when I moved back to Austin. He insisted I go and check out all the exhibits, and they were amazing. And the collection hopefully has been preserved and will come back in some form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're having to do a lot of fundraising because they need, unfortunately, in a capitalist society, they just need money to get any of this done. But we haven't seen the last of them yet.
I want to plug a particular place that feels like old Austin while we're talking about it. There is a place called Giddy Ups.
Oh.
And it's on Manchac Road, and it's further south from the Moon Tower. And I went to a great reunion concert by Shiva's Headband there.
Yay.
Maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years or something like that. And it was amazing. It was like, I don't know, it was a time machine kind of experience. So Giddy Ups had to close for a while, but they're opening again on June 1st. Well, they opened again on June 1st.
Here we are.
And they probably have some things scheduled. There's some places like that. There's another one called Sam's Town Point in South Austin. I mean, a lot of the places that are kind of like preserving some of the spirit of old Austin are south.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's an idea. Why don't you take Plutopia on the road and do some live broadcasts from some of these venues?
We would love to do that. That's what I used to do on radio for a long time, was live broadcasts, because there's nothing more essential than being there. And it's fun doing this Zoom thing, but it's nothing like being face to face with people and talking. Especially in like a live location, like a club or a gallery, even places where people gather.
We could make a whole lot of trouble.
Hey, good trouble.
Good trouble. I also want to bring this up.
Ah, look at that.
Let's talk about Green Man.
Well, it's one thing to attend parties, but it's something else to actually host them. And I've made my own modest contributions. I started doing what I call audio-rich productions. Was born out of early '60s parties that I started throwing. When I wanted to hear all the music again, but I didn't want it just randomly. And I thought, well, let's see, I'll play it in chronological order, and put it all together and started doing that, and realized that, well, someone said there's no better time machine than music. And if you can play music of the 60s from 61 through 65 through 69, you cover a lot of ground, a lot of cultural change, and a lot of amazing artistic evolution. And I added more to it by posting a calendar, year now playing. Okay, so you knew it was the music of 1966 or 1967, and so we got to celebrate New Year's many times during the rolling out of that party, and I had so many songs, so much music that it stretched over several days, went 24 hours, and I just kept it going. It was, instead of a dance marathon, it was a party marathon, and I had people sleeping over to uh, to be there for the whole thing, and still doing that. In fact, this summer it's kind of evolved a little bit, and instead of doing the whole 60s, I'm doing 1 year at a time. So last year was the 50th anniversary of 1970, and this year is the 50th anniversary of 1971. And not willing to leave the 60s behind, we're also celebrating the 60th anniversary of 1961.
Wow.
And everywhere I've lived, I've had have different kinds of parties, different. It's always a theme. See, you can't just have a party. There has to be a central theme, that the music and the costume and the food and everything reflect that theme. And when I moved to northeast Austin, the thing was that it's a farmer working class neighborhood, and there wasn't any kind of, there was no place walkable where we could just go and hang out a place. So we decided we'll just do our own, and we opened our front porch to the Green Man Coffee House, and it's open every Friday that remains, and same thing. There's always a theme. Lately, it's been whoever's birthday it is that Friday. Usually several musicians, and also I'll play the music of those artists during that Green Man. But sometimes it's an event like the solstice or an equinox or Groundhog Day or May Day, and that's a great way to keep track of the seasons and to invite neighbors and friends over for socializing and celebration. And yeah, we've been doing that. Green Man opened in 2009 here on the free-spirited Upper East Side. So again, just trying to do my part and keeping people happy and having some reason to live.
Have you ever thought about expanding it, like taking over some larger space and having a public green man?
I ended up doing the 60s party at the Texas Union Ballroom in 1981. I was enrolled in Jerry Dean's rock and roll history class, and every student was supposed to contribute some kind of project, and mine was a 60s party. So it was a public gathering in a public place with, I don't know, I think it lasted 9 hours. Went from the afternoon up all the way up to like 1 a.m. or something. And anybody could come, and had the posters, the light show, the nonstop hits, graffiti boards, costumes encouraged, of course. And that was fun. But and I thought, well, I wanted my 60s party to become an Austin tradition like Spamarama or Eeyore's, and it just I guess my promotional skills weren't up to snuff, and it wasn't able to do that on a very large scale. So it's been a private thing.
Well, maybe just have a sock hop.
Well, and we can celebrate the 70th anniversary of 1951.
We used to do, I know you remember the Plutopia show that we used to do.
Yes,
because you were one of our volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Those were hard. They were really hard to put on. Of course, it was kind of a big event. It was way bigger than made any kind of sense. We were crazy to do what we were doing, but it was kind of great fun to do it. Having a party in your backyard is a lot easier than like transferring it into some kind of major event production with, trying to find a venue for it and trying to find something big enough to hold like a lot of separate acts and that sort of thing, which is what we used to do.
Well, the whole concept of having a party in your backyard or in your living room actually has become kind of a business. There are a lot of major artists that do uh, home concerts.
It's true.
Out in my neighborhood here in Bastrop County, there are people who do that, and they have it's usually acoustic type acts. It's hard to get a big rock and roll band into your living room, but I know a number of people are doing that, and there are artists that do it all over the country, and it's pretty charming. Going to a lot of these big concerts, after a while it just becomes a bit overwhelming. But if you're with a bunch of friends, in a living room listening to someone playing really nice music, it's a nice experience.
Yeah, the house concerts have done well, and I hope we'll see those again. We've been virtual for the past year, but we're about actually this tomorrow we're reopening live.
Oh, cool.
And, we hope to regain our. It's just for our fully jabbed friends who can come to Green Man, but we're gonna try to mix it up and have an online component and have at least a corner of the stage so we can be online, and people who live in New York or Houston can join us one way or t'other to celebrate what we're doing. Tomorrow is Freddie Fender's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to play a lot of his music.
That's great. There's been such an adaptation to virtual experiences, especially the kind we're having right now via Zoom. And I can't help but think that there's going to be a sort of creative hybridization of virtual and live, and that many many artists and organizations are going to have both components in their offerings, and that there will continue to be a way for people to have virtual experiences. One strength of that is that you can travel without having to travel.
Yeah.
You can enjoy and appreciate an experience that is not happening in your town of residence, without having to fly somewhere. So, Howie, we've got about 7 minutes left. Do you want to talk about the tour business? Are you still doing that? I mean, are you able to?
I have stepped back from it last, I don't know, maybe it's been as long as 6 years, just because I was involved with my full-time job, which I just left this week. So I'm joining the AARP people as of now. Tours were Techspert tours were an outgrowth of my insatiable curiosity about the state and about the history of Texas and Austin, how Austin is unique. And I love, since I'm a performer, and a teacher, I like meeting new people and welcoming them to the city and introducing them to new ideas and new places and to each other. You can see it's if you look too closely, you notice that's an old picture because there's about twice the number of skyscrapers in Austin.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, it's been a great sideline, and I think I'm gonna. I do want to revive it here next few months once I get my footing. But yeah, again, once the travel industry gets back in gear, I think we're going to see a lot more people coming back to the city and find out what it is, and talk about how what made the city special, how it was founded, the various characters that made this place what it is, the architecture, especially the Capitol, University, 6th Street. All those things are draws to certain kinds of people. And besides the weird tours, I love take them out to the hill country and sampling the various Texas wines. And now we have spirits, we have whiskeys and rums and all kinds of wonderful things to sip that are made right here. You can just sort of drink your way through the hill country, uh, and it keeps me on my toes because there's always something new to learn and something new to teach. And especially after these tumultuous last 12 months or so in the USA, I'm going to have to rewrite my whole spiel because there's some things that I didn't know about, and they can't really be left out of the history of this place. So it's going to be fun.
I think you pointed out yourself that Austin is a rare city that was created because of the beauty of its location, because it was just a beautiful place, and it was made the capital of Texas for that reason too. So
Yeah,
it had a great start.
yeah. There's a good way to start something because there was nothing. I say there was nothing out here. There was nothing that the civilizers wanted to see. So they've just brought civilization with them, and unfortunately pushed out the people that were already here. But yeah, but what attracted the early folks here, especially Maribel B. Lamar, the second president of Texas, was just the gorgeous scenery and all the resources and some of the same things that bring people today. It's not the people; it's certainly the hills and what's left of the springs and great place. It's great climate, all of it.
It is not really a quaint city anymore. It's
Oh,
I mean, we're being drugged tooth and nail into the future by people like Elon Musk,
mm,
who've realized the potential of Austin and Texas. And I mean, Musk has built a spaceport in South Texas and has situated himself here in Austin, and that's sure to change things.
If you bring back your tours, you may have to change. If you look back at places you used to take people to, uh, a lot of them are gone.
that's true.
You might have to do uh, it used to be here tour kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Go to all the former places, the former location of the armadillo, the former location of Threadgills, and that'd be kind of a sad tour, I guess.
That's interesting. We recently sampled a celebrity homes tour in Los Angeles, and I noticed that they focused pretty much strictly on the former homes of people. They didn't tell you where anybody lives now. They say, oh, so and so used to live here. And I realized that was probably a privacy issue or whatever. But you can build a tour on that, just talking about what used to be. History, a historic tour.
We're dating ourselves.
Well, I mean, our hair is white for a reason, right?
I earned these wrinkles.
I actually think, though, that Austin has a history as rich as any city in the U.S., and it's certainly a blast to go through it. And just the parts that we were part of, the certainly the musical history of Austin and how it evolved from, like, when I first got here, there weren't that many places where you could go to hear live music, but they were happening, I guess the first place I went to regularly was the Vulcan Gas Company. And what would Austin be if the Vulcan Gas Company had never existed? Anyway, well, we're almost out of time. Do you have any last words?
Well, I just let you know that the book is still available. You can get it from me if you happen to run into me on the street. It's also on Amazon, and Wild About Music has it, and it's, even though it's again, I didn't try to say you should have been here then, but you can be there just by reading the book and pick up a copy. And again, if I run into you, I'd be more than happy to autograph it for you. And I hope more people enjoy it too.
It's a terrific book. I've been loving it. And with that, we have reached the end of the internet.
Thank
or at
you,
least the end of our
guys.
show. Thank you
so
so
much
much.
for letting me be a part of this, and I hope you'll invite me back another time.
Oh,
We
definitely.
certainly will. Become a regular.
Okay.
All right.
All right, y'all.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Peace and love.
And understanding.